I'd like to show you a different way to knit. Most people when they knit will knit in this fashion. Loop over, needle in, loop over, needle in, loop over, which to me is a little time consuming. I met a lady at work who showed me a different way to do it, which is you hold the yarn in this hand and you loop it around your finger twice between your lower fingers here, and it creates tension for your stitches. Now you will find that if you do it this way, depending on your yarn and whether or not you have any rings on your finger, the tension will be a little too tight. So you don't have to do it twice, you can do it just once, and you'll loop and you'll knit this way, where it's almost like crocheting, where you basically just loop the yarn, hook the yarn with the tip of the needle and work it through your stitches. Now if it's still a little comfortable or it's too loose and the tension's too loose, you can hold it between your index fingers, and depending on how tightly you hold it, you can create your own tension. But I found that knitting this way is so much faster. Once you get it going, this yarn is a little loopy. Of course, if you're doing patterns in your stitches, or you're doing cables, or anything that's not just straight knitting and purling, you may find that you can't do it this way. I know I have a problem doing it, but it's so much faster than having to stop and loop your yarn, stop and loop your yarn. This way, like I said, it's almost like crocheting, and you can go through much faster. And it works. Right now I'm doing a knit stitch, which if you notice, well, too late. I finished the row. But it's just much faster. Any tips I can give? I normally have to start the first one off in the regular stitch, but then I'll just switch the yarn over. If you find that your yarn is on this side, well, let me loop it first. I'll loop it and start stitching. If you find that your yarn ends up on this side, you're going to have trouble working the yarn and keeping the tension right and keeping it loose enough. So just make sure that the yarn is on this side. And again, just continue to knit. It may take a little time, a little getting used to. I know it took some getting used to for me. I would have to knit the regular way, and then I'd knit this way till my hand started to bother me, and then I'd go back to knitting the regular way. So I basically kind of trained my hand to get used to it so that it wouldn't hurt while I was doing it. So hopefully this is something that you can use, something that you would like to try, and I highly recommend trying it, especially if you've got a pattern if you're working with a pattern that is nothing but straight knitting and purling. Okay, happy knitting!